Alright, this is absolute value equations. We're going to recall the definition of the absolute value of a number, which is the distance it is from 0 on a number line. So I'll go ahead and do an example. So if we talk about the absolute value of 3, which is also equal to the absolute value of negative 3, we're talking about that it's 3 away from the center in both directions, right? So negative 3 would be 3 to the left, and positive 3 would be 3 to the right. So when we're solving, for example, this one, the absolute value of 5w plus 3 equals 7, we're trying to figure out when this absolute value is 7 away from 0. So you could go to positive 7 or negative 7. So that's why we do 5w plus 3 equals 7, but then we also do or 5w plus 3 equals negative 7. So the positive and the negatives, and then we're going to solve each one individually. So subtract 3 on both sides. We get 5w equals 4, divide by 5, w equals 4/5, and then do the same thing over here. So subtract 3 on both sides. We get 5w equals negative 10, divide by 5 on both sides. We get w equals negative 2, and that would be our answer. Alright, so it's basically what you do for an equation. So let's go ahead and do the next one. Alright, so we're going to get x over 2 minus 1 equals 11. And then we're going to do x over 2 minus 1 equals negative 11. We're going to go ahead and multiply by 2 to cancel out the denominator. So that cancels out that denominator, and we're left with x minus 2 equals 22. Add 2 to the other side, x equals 24. Alright, then we're going to go ahead and multiply. Again over here, cancels out that 2. X minus 2 equals negative 22. Add 2 to the other side. X equals negative 20. So those would be our two answers. Alright, so for the next one, we have 2 absolute value of x plus 25 equals 23. So if you notice in example number 2 and 1, the absolute value was already isolated, but in example number 3, it's not isolated on one side, so first we have to isolate. And you would isolate the absolute value. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite it over here. 2 absolute value of x plus 25 equals 23. So I'm going to subtract the 25. You get 2 absolute value of x equals negative 2. Then go ahead and divide by 2. And we get negative 1. Now, remember we talked about the absolute value being a distance. So can the absolute value be a negative number? No, because it's a distance and there's no negative distance. So this would be no solution. Okay, so whenever you have the absolute value isolated and it's equal to a negative number, that implies no solution. Alright, and then we have the last type of thing you might be solving for. So we have 2 absolute values that are equal to each other, and in this case you just set them equal to each other. So x minus 3 equals 5 minus x, and then you're going to set x minus 3 equal to the negative of that other side. 5 minus x. Alright, so let's work on the left first. I'm going to go ahead and add x to the other side. I get 2x minus 3 equals 5. And then I'll go ahead and add 3 to the other side. So I get 2x equals 8 divided by 2. X equals 4. So that's our first answer. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the other side. You have to distribute that negative. So I get negative 5 plus x. And then I'm going to go ahead and subtract x to the other side. And notice that they actually cancel out in both sides. So we're left with negative 3 equals negative 5. So is that true? No, it's not true. So this would just not be a solution, and this one would be our only solution. Alright, so that's it. That's basically the 3 types of ways that you could solve absolute values. So you just have to remember that you need to have the absolute value isolated on one side of the equation. Once you do that, then you have to do a negative and then a positive.